What is going on, gunfighters? Welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting tactics, ballistics, use of force, morals, ethics. Today, value and budget guns. All the right way, with Almighty God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. I don't think it's a newsflash to anybody that inflation's a thing, right? The dollar does not have the purchasing power that it once did for many things. That said, what are some really good gun values in, July 2024 at the time of this recording? What if any are some really good values in guns? And I think there are several. So I'm going to throw those out today and talk about them. If you've heard a version of the bio, if you've heard the normal pre-recorded version of the bio, I'm going to shoot from the hip today, do a little bit different one. First and foremost, I am a Christian, servant of God, and a follower of Jesus Christ. You guys probably know the normal stuff in the bio. Military, Marine Corps and Army, law enforcement, LAPD, and some other specialized assignments. Private contractor for many different government agencies, which is what I'm currently doing in addition to doing the podcast. Private security contract work, call that what you want. Gun for hire, have gun, will travel. Been doing this podcast for, I've been podcasting for 6 or 7 years. Been doing this podcast, I don't know for how long, I'd have to look it up. But many years. And some of these are reruns, but I just passed episode 700. What about guns and gun values? Well, in addition to that kind of experience that I've talked about many times, I have at times in the past worked at gun stores, managed firearms and training companies, literally from the East Coast to the West Coast. I have done that in the past when I'm like in between jobs. Somebody's looking for like a firearms store manager, firearms and training company manager. I'll jump in there. Actually, it's a lot of fun because I get to talk with people about guns. And I've also been in charge of like gun values, appraising guns, buying and selling guns. So that's kind of a different bio than you normally get from me, which is germane to today's topic. With that, let's start looking at some value guns in 2024. The gun that got me thinking about this is the Rossi Model 92. Now, I like American-made guns. If you want the very best, this is a copy of the Winchester. Winchester still makes the 92. They even make a 92 Takedown. They're beautiful, fantastic, blue steel walnut guns. They are not cheap. And if I was doing like classic old school Americana guns, it would be on there. But the Rossi 92 is a copy of it, and it's made in Brazil, where it's not made in China by a bunch of commies. It's not made in some Islamic country with a bunch of people that read the Quran and take it literally and want to kill us or convert us by the edge of the sword. I don't apologize for being politically incorrect. If you want to politically correct something, go listen to NBC or something. I don't know. But it's made by or in Brazil, which, alright. I got no beef with Brazil. In fact, I think we get beef from Brazil. And I like beef. And I like the Rossi 92. They're good guns. They're a good value gun. One, they make guns in stainless steel, which I'm a big fan of. The Rossi 92 is considerably less than the original that you can still get Winchester Model 92s. And again, they come in stainless. They come in some different models. They come in I'm in between. I want to be old school cowboy, but I also want to be a spaceship door gunner, so I'm going to get the classic lever action with all this stuff thrown on it and make it modern, but I don't want a semi-auto. They make those kind of models, and they make the classic blue steel and walnut, and they make like the laminated stock stainless steel, which I think is the most practical. If you can call a lever gun practical in 2024, that would be the most practical model for me. But the Rossi Model 92, 44 Magnum, 357 Magnum, they're the two that I would look at. There are other calibers and stuff, but they're great guns. They're great value guns in 2024. And that's what got me thinking about, in 2024 where stuff costs a ton of money, these are a good value. So I thought I would throw that out there. The next one, the Maverick 88, is probably the best. These aren't in like order of best, bang for your buck ratio, but this is the number one, I think. I need another shotgun about like I need another pair of cowboy boots. I don't need one, but it would be nice, right? And I was in Walmart the other day. Here's a little key for if you're living in the right place. If you live somewhere and your local Walmart, even if that's 60, 70 miles away, whatever your closest Walmart is, if they don't sell guns, you might be in the wrong place. As is like region, area, state that you live in. Just a little, geographical tip there for you. That's a good indicator. But I was in Walmart and they had a Maverick 88 for like under $200. These are American-made guns. You might not think it, but they are. There's a lot of cheap shotgun clones out there, but this is an American-made Mossberg 500 cheaper copy. And except for the safety in a different place, as far as practicality goes, they're rock solid. $200 for a gun that'll kill anything in North America. A gun that's one of the best. I don't care how much you love your Daniel Defense tricked out, $2,000 with a $2,000 optic, and you gotta have a 1,000 lumen Surefire or you're wrong, and all that money that you just want to throw in a tactical black hole. As far as practicality goes, in a major grid down scenario, the shotgun's probably a more practical choice. And the Maverick 88 is a good choice for $200 at Walmart. Are you kidding me? In 2024? You looking for a good value in guns? Again, bang for your buck? Maverick 88. That's it. And it's hard for me to just not walk out with that. I don't even need it, but I was like, $200. That's probably a better investment than leaving it in the bank. Because the money I leave in the bank is probably going to lose a bunch of value. That's probably going to gain a bunch of value. It's hard for me just not to walk out with it just for an investment. Forget about silver bars. Be stacking those Maverick 88s. That's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And I really like guns, so it's probably a skewed opinion. But it's a great deal. And they had right next to it, or right above it, I forget, a legit Mossberg 500. A Mossberg 500 for $300. So for another 50% more, you get the actual Mossberg 500. That's one of the greatest shotguns on the planet right now. Now, I like my Benelli. I like my Benelli M2. It's great. It's arguably a much better combat shotgun, in my opinion. However, it costs several times more. There are some advantages to a pump over semi-auto. And if you decide you want a pump, a Mossberg 500, you could say, I want the 590 with the bayonet lug, and I can't fault you. I have one. But a Mossberg 500 is legit one of the best shotguns on the planet right now. $300. Are you kidding? Like that, there are still great values in 2024, and that's why I wanted to throw those out there. It's not all bad news. Those are fantastic shotguns. And the Mossberg, again, made in America. Make America great again. Buy American shotguns. Make America gunfighters again. Right? It's fantastic. Another one. This is not made in America, but we bought them from collapsed commie states, which is kind of cool. Score one for America. The SKS. Now, I know what you're going to say. They used to be, under $100. They used to be under $200. Well, Bitcoin used to be 25 cents. Right? That's like saying when Bitcoin was $1. I remember when Bitcoin was 25 cents. It's super overpriced at $1. And now it's what? I don't know, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. I don't know. We have some Bitcoin. We're blessed to have it as an investment. Bought it a long time ago. Don't really look at it. We don't see it as a really fungible asset. But if I'd have been like, at $1, it's way overpriced, and I didn't buy it at $1. I don't want you to think that I did. It was much more than $1 when I bought it. But you get the idea. The SKS is built by Russians who, I don't agree with their politics, but let's be real, they make some of the best combat rifles on Earth. This is a semi-automatic rifle And that's what I like about it. I like the AK-47 too for what it was intended for. It was a submachine gun, or a submachine gun replacement. The SKS was a rifle replacement. If you want a good semi-automatic rifle that fires one of the best, if not the best, intermediate cartridge ever devised on Earth, the 7.62x39, and you want one that's rugged, crazy reliable, easy to clean, easy to maintain, good iron sights, good ergonomics, SKS, right? Even if they're $4, $5, $6, $800, I might shock you, but I still think they're underpriced. If you see a good Chinese or Russian, I'm not big on the Yugos. They're just too complicated. The only broken SKS I've ever seen was a Yugo. And even before that, I don't like them. Don't try and turn them into a spaceship and throw a bunch of extra stuff on there, grenade launcher and this thing. And in my opinion, the Russians and the Chinese. Now, Chinese make pretty junk stuff to sell to us, but when they make it for themselves, they make it pretty good. So, in my opinion, the Chinese and the Russian SKSs are the best. There may be some other country I don't know of. The Yugos I'm not real big on. But a Chinese or Russian SKS, try and find me a modern rifle with those attributes today that's that reliable and that well made that's under $1,000. So I still think they're underpriced. They're still a good value in 2024, even though they're maybe 3 times what they used to cost. 4 times what they used to cost. Okay. I mean, gas used to be under $1. So I still think the SKS is a good value in 2024. It will get to a point where they're no longer like good value shootable guns where they're collector items. And it's starting to get there now, but I still think you're on the backside of it. I still think if you find a good one that's not crazy expensive, it's a good value because of what it brings to the table and the features that it has. The next one, the Ruger American. The Ruger American and the Ruger American Gen 2. Talk about features it brings to the table. They're accurate. They're 3-lug design. They, by all accounts, have good extractor. I'm not big on push-feed rifles, but it has a better extractor design. I think even though they're kind of marketed as a budget rifle, I think they're a better rifle than the Remington 700. Just by design. They kind of have a quasi pillar bedding. They may even have a legit pillar bedding. I've never owned one, but I've been around them. I mess with them. They're accurate just by the way they're designed. I think they're probably more reliable the way they're designed. That might anger some 700 lovers. And I was just out shooting a 700. And I've taken a ton of deer with my 700. Probably not a ton by weight, but you get the idea. I'm being hyperbolic. Taking a lot of deer, elk, wolf with that rifle. It's still not a great rifle design. It just is what I had. I think the Ruger's probably a better design, and it's cheaper. And it's American made. And you can get all kinds of different models. If you want a more quasi dual purpose, like I want to hunt with it, but I also want it if something goes bad as like a truck gun or like as a backup apocalypse loadout kind of gun. They make like the ranch rifle version. They make detachable box magazine. They got a lot of cool features. Find one that fits the best flavor for you. They even make it, again, 7.62x39, 300 blackout. They make all kinds. They make a ton of different models. They make the Gen 2 now. The Gen 2 ranch rifle seems like a really, really good option if you want a manual transmission kind of crossover gun for hunting and defense, survival type stuff. Now, I think you're behind the curve if compared to a semi-auto, but if you just want or need a bolt or your wherever you live is infringed to the point where you can't own a semi-auto, then they're a good option. And they're a good rifle, and I think they're vastly undervalued. I think you get a lot for the cost. You know, 15 years is probably right around the turning point. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you'd be hard-pressed to get a legit sub-MOA gun. I'm not going to say every Ruger American is sub-MOA, but you probably get close. And you're talking about not a custom gun. You're talking about off-the-rack gun and a more budget-friendly gun. It's a good gun. And again, there's a ton of different models, so I'm not going to pick one. I think they're all good values. And they just came out with the Gen 2. And if you don't need the features of the Gen 2, I don't know, but it might be a good time to see if there's any sales on the Gen 1s. Like, I don't know, whatever big box store is running a special on the Gen 1s because the Gen 2s are out. I don't think there's any fundamental shift in the design of the gun, just features. So, my 3-year rule, I wouldn't be too worried about that, getting a Gen 2, because, again, the fundamental design, the working mechanism is the same. Different coatings, different features, but it shouldn't really affect the reliability of that platform. And again, the Gen 1s, if you don't need the features of the Gen 2, the Gen 1 might be a great value right now. If you love beautiful old world craftsmanship, now the SKS is a rugged gun. I would not call it particularly beautiful gun, but if you want beautiful old world craftsmanship, right now the Swiss straight pulls. If you just like the beautiful guns, and I have never seen a Swiss gun that wasn't beautiful. Now, if you beat it up enough and let it rust enough, it'll be ugly. But just the Swiss, the term like a Swiss watch is a term for a reason. The Swiss make beautifully crafted machines. And the Swiss straight pulls are no different. Now, I don't think a straight pull is any better or really any faster than a traditional turn bolt rifle. I just don't. Just by the mechanics, right? It's not just a push forward, pull back. There's some kind of camming that has to go on. Otherwise, when you pull the trigger, the bolt will fly back and severely injure you, if not kill you. There's other stuff that has to go on. It's a more complex design. But that said, they're cool guns. If you just want a beautiful old world craftsmanship gun, the Swiss straight pulls, beautiful guns. Beautiful, cool machines. And if that's kind of the thing that drives you, if you're like the more steampunk aspects of guns, the Swiss straight pulls that are on the market, beautiful guns. Not compared to modern guns, but compared to guns at the time, pretty accurate guns as well. And talking about beautifully complex machines, we make some here in America. If you've ever taken apart a revolver to do work on it, especially a double action revolver, probably you regretted it. Unless you're an actual gunsmith, right? You know how complex and how synchronized everything in there has to be, and if one thing's out of whack, the whole machine doesn't work. They're beautifully crafted machines. One of the ones that I think is a good value, and one of the best super subcompact, I'm not telling you to carry one of this as your main carry gun, but for an ultralight carry gun or a backup gun, Smith & Wesson J-frame. There are some really affordable models of Smith & Wesson J-frames. Really, really good values. They don't cost what a high point costs, but I think for the complexity of the machine and the quality at which they are made, I think they're a good value. I think they're a good, solid value in firearms. We're kind of in the golden era of ARs. I think a lot of people have gotten bored with the AR because they're trying to push, like, you think it's just organic that everybody's talking about lever actions on gun tube extravaganza and this person and that person, like somehow the lever action is new or there's some new innovation. You throw a couple holes in the rail and it's suddenly a new machine. I think a lot of that's because people got bored with the AR. The market was so oversaturated with ARs, the gun industry was like, oh, we gotta push something else on these people. Let's pretend like the lever action is a new thing and put some holes in the fore end and act like it's a crazy new invention. And that way we'll get people to throw money down that hole. Meanwhile, there's a bunch of these overstocked ARs, which makes it a really good time for you. Right now, at the time of this recording, there's not a ton of people actively talking on the news about banning them. There's other stuff going on in the news. That said, there is an election coming up. Now might be a good time to look at really good ARs. There's a lot of really good, high-quality, ARs on the market. I'm not going to mention all of them, but I think some of the best values are the Colt LE6920. They're not cheap. They're not crazy expensive. They are the semi-automatic versions of the actual M16 and the M4s. They're not the only, but we're one of the big makers of the U.S. military M16s and M4s. And the Colt LE6920 and other models like it, all the R&D, all the research and development, from Arctic conditions to desert conditions to coatings and specs and how big the gas tube has to be and how big the gas port has to be and if it's staked properly, all that stuff that your tax dollars paid for, you can get that really good proven design. It's not the most reliable gun out there, I'll be the first to tell you, but if you want an AR, the Colt LE 6920 or similar model, they're not crazy expensive for what they are. They're a good value. They're like my number one recommendation. And if somebody's like, I want an AR, and I'm like, do you want it to play with it as a range toy, or do you want it to save your life or somebody else's life? If it's a life-saving tool, my number one recommendation is a Colt LE 6920. My number two recommendation, also very, very good, is a Smith & Wesson M&P. And they make different models. Colt makes a lot of different models too, but Smith & Wesson M&Ps, they make really good guns for the money. And again, there are others, there's a whole bunch, but those are the two, without making this an AR episode. Those are the two big ones that I'm going to recommend for really good value guns in 2024. Here's one that will make some people happy and some people gasp. Kel-Tec. A Kel-Tec Sub 2000. Now, some stuff Kel-Tec makes, I'm really like, what? Why? And some stuff Kel-Tec makes, I'm like, that's really cool. The Sub 2K falls into that's pretty cool. I see most PCCs as kind of why. If I'm going to carry something the size and weight of a full-powered battle rifle or a assault rifle, AK-47, M4, M16, that weighs that much, that's that big, why wouldn't I just carry an actual rifle? Why am I messing around with PCC? This is gunfighter life, not pew-pew, bang, steal at a range to have fun life. I know Canadians, there's actual reasons why you guys might choose that over a rifle. But for Americans, unless you live in some weird regulation state, why the PCC if it's that big? The Sub 2K is not that big or that heavy. It's a pretty lightweight, handy gun. And it folds. And the new generation, it folds and you can mount an optic on it. So if you're talking about a duffel bag gun, a laptop bag gun, a lightweight, handy, kind of urban, bug out, get out of the city kind of thing that you can have, fold it up maybe in the back, in that little pocket in the back seat of your car that you can reach around with some kind of strap or 550 cord tied to it and pull it up into the front seat. It's one of the most practical PCCs. It's also really affordable. I'm not going to knock it for being affordable. They're good guns. They've been around a while. Again, some of the stuff Kel-Tec makes, questionable. The Kel-Tec Sub 2000, it's not one of them. They're simple, they're lightweight, they're reliable, and with today's episode, they're a good value. So the Kel-Tec Sub 2000. And here's another one. It kind of falls in this in-between world. It's not a military surplus gun. It's not a new manufacturer gun. But the Husqvarna. You might know Husqvarna from chainsaws. However, Husqvarna made rifles. Husqvarna made some really good hunting rifles. Some really good controlled round feed, iron-sighted rifles. Which if you've listened to my hunting episodes and my bolt-action rifle episodes, I'm a big fan of both those things. I was just out making sure, confirming zero, and just getting some trigger time in with my Pre-64 Winchester. You want a lot of those same features. Maybe not to the exact quality of a Pre-64 Winchester Model 70, but similar features in a really well-made gun. The Husqvarnas. They're bolt-action rifles, controlled round feed, iron-sighted. Those are a fraction of the cost generally of a Pre-64 Winchester. And they're just fantastic. So if you're looking for a good value, kind of old school, rugged, iron sight, and you can mount an optic on them, but irons, they have iron sights, right? To me, a rifle, why would you not have iron sights on a rifle if you hunt hard? If you just go walk 50 yards and sit over a corn pile, that's one thing. But if you're hiking up and down mountains and stuff, and you might be back there for days, and you might fall and mess up your optic, why would you not have iron sights? Bring that back, please. But anyway, these do. They have iron sights, controlled round feed, good craftsmanship, the Husqvarna bolt-action rifles. If you come across one and it seems like a good value, it probably is a great value. So it was just something I thought I would throw in there that's probably not on a lot of people's radar. The next one is not really a gun maker model, but it is kind of a category. And I would never advise you to do this today. I would never advise you to get a pristine like Springfield 1903 and sporterize it. I would advise you not to do that. I mean, it's your money. If you buy the gun, you can do what you want with it. You can throw it in a porta potty if you want. But there's a lot of these guns that were, because after World War II, there was a massive surplus of these military arms. And our economy was good, and a lot of other countries were trying to get money, and they sold us a bunch of war surplus guns, not to mention our own guns. And a lot of people that wanted to come back and hunt transformed these into hunting type rifles, made them a little bit lighter. It's called sporterized. You'll hear this term, sporterized rifles. They took like a 1903, they cut the stock down. They may have done some other stuff to it. They may have found a way to fix an optic to it, a scope mount, something like that. So they took it away from the original condition. They sporterized it. There's a lot of those out there. Those can be crazy good money. I just saw an Arasaka that was rebarreled, and it looked like it had been done professionally rebarreled in 30-06 for $200 and something. Now, I didn't buy it because I didn't really need it, but that's a good value, and that's just one example. Now, sporterized Arasaka, sporterized 1903 Springfield, which is basically the Winchester Model 64, pre-64, is kind of a copy of that. So if you find a sporterized one of those, again, you might be getting a lot of the same features like the Husqvarna for a lot less price. Now, an original condition 1903 is probably going to be spendy, but one that somebody chopped up may not be. And if you're using it as a tool to put meat on the table, and you want those features, or you just want to hunt with something cool and esoteric and different, these sporterized guns can be a great deal. One that you may even find in mostly original condition or original condition that's not even sporterized, that people don't really covet, they may at some point, the Carcanos, the 6.5 Carcano. Cool, handy little rifle. I think they're not really appreciated, but there's nothing wrong with those Italian Carcanos. They're, I don't think, any better or worse than a lot of other military guns of the era. Probably not going to be a tack driver, but it may surprise you that like the German 98Ks are not tack drivers either. And the Carcano is a lot lighter. So, again, just mostly the sporterized guns. If you want to look for a good value, at a gun show, a 1917 Enfield that somebody sporterized in 30-06, probably be a hunting machine. So just something to keep your eye out for. If you want an original, if you're like a collector of military memorabilia, then yeah, you want the original condition. If you want to take it out and hunt with it, those can still be a good value. Caveat on some of those sporterized rifles, especially the really old, some of the serial number sequences in the Springfield 1903. Some of those are not meant to withstand the pressures of modern 30-06, but many of them are. So do your research on that. But I'm not aware of any problems with the 1917s. They're good to go. You might even find a, M1 Garand that somebody really jacked up and drilled holes in it and mounted a scope on it and cut the stock off. That's not crazy expensive. If you do that, also be mindful that those are not meant to fire modern power, more powerful 30-06. There's M1 only loads. That's what you want to fire through your M1 Garand. But anyway, just a couple caveats there, but the sporterized rifles are a great value. The last one is the Remington 740. Now, the Remington 760, I think, in my opinion, is one of the best hunting guns for practical hunting, the kind of hunting that I like to do, spot and stalk hunting, tracking, still hunting. One of the best hunting rifles ever made. It's a pump action, usually in 30-06, maybe in 270 or 308, but most commonly in 30-06. Well, those have become kind of coveted. I've seen the prices on those kind of go up fairly significantly. But there's a semi-auto version, the 740, that is not as coveted. You might find them for a lot less than the pump actions. And these have a reputation for not being very reliable. But from what I think, and what I've heard from other people that know more about it than me, is people take them apart and put them back together wrong, and then they don't work correctly. Well, that's not a fault of the gun. That's the fault of the end user. So if you get one, especially one that somebody says, oh, this thing it's unreliable, maybe they took it apart and didn't put it back together right. So you might get a good deal on that gun. And if they're put together properly, I don't think they're unreliable. Also, we're talking about a hunting gun. Am I saying you should have this as your line one, throw on your plate carrier and grab your Remington 740? No, I'm not saying that. But if you want a light, handy, semi-automatic, full-powered rifle with just really good craftsmanship, because these were around when, old Remington, when they made really good guns. Sorry, new Remington, but until you get your act together, I can't really endorse you. But old Remington quality. And again, iron sights, which I'm big on a hunting rifle. Most of these, I think, are going to have iron sights unless somebody took them off. So, just really good. Undervalued. I think they're a really undervalued gun. And that's going to lead me to wrapping up and giving you the tactical tip of the day. You probably know I'm not the biggest fan of Glocks, but they're a fine, usable gun. They will generally be reliable at throwing lead in the general direction you want it to go, even if it's got bad ergonomics and a bad trigger pull. That said, they work, and they're good guns. If you... how this comes in with the value and the tactical tip, Glock has a blue label program. And I think when it first came out, it was for military and law enforcement, like active duty and active duty law enforcement, like active law enforcement. However, they've expanded it to veterans. So if you've got a DD-214 and you find a blue label dealer in your area, and don't take advantage of this, guys. Be equal weights and equal measures. Don't get your buddy who's a veteran to buy it for you at that price. I don't think that's cool. They're trying to do a good thing, and I would encourage you to be honest about it. But if you are a veteran, you've got that DD-214 honorable discharge. If they want to thank you for your service and give you a sweet deal on a Glock, I don't see a problem with that. And they are really good prices on the Glocks. I don't know if every Glock model is on there, but there's a lot of models on there. Gen 5s, Gen 3s. If you think you want a Gen 4, I would say reconsider. You probably want a Gen 3 or a Gen 5. But hey, that's on you. But the prices on there are really good. So if you want, good value for your money and you're a veteran, if you're law enforcement, you probably already knew about the Glock Blue Label program. But if you're a veteran, you may not know that they expanded that. So if you're a veteran, you can get that deal. And that's your tactical tip of the day. Your tactical verse of the day, since we already kind of mentioned equal weights and equal measures. You shall do no injustice in judgment, in measurements of length, weight, or volume. You shall have honest scales, honest weights, an honest ephah, and an honest hin. With that, men, actually I want to touch on something else. I get some kickback. That was obviously a verse of the Bible. I get kickback for saying Judeo-Christian values. I am not Jewish. But here's the deal. Jesus Christ was Jewish. The values, the things that he says, those are straight up from the Torah. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He essentially doubles down on that when he says, I say to you, you've heard it said, no, I don't have this verse memorized verbatim, but he says, you have heard it said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you, if you look at a woman with lust in your heart, you've already committed adultery with her. He makes it more strict. And he does that with many other verses. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That Word, the Torah, that's the same values. It's Judeo-Christian values. Jesus Christ was Jewish. So I get a lot of pushback on that, but I don't know what to tell you on that. You take that up with Jesus Christ. You say, oh, that's Old Testament stuff. Jesus, is eternal. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And how about this for New Testament? How about Revelation, the last book in the Bible? He is what? The Lion. The Lion of what? The Lion of the tribe of Judah. He's Jewish. You're going to have to wrestle with that on your own. I didn't make that up. And again, I'm not Jewish. Jesus was Jewish. Those are Judeo-Christian values. If you got a problem with that, I would encourage you to read your Bible. And with that, I appreciate you guys, appreciate all that you do, and have a blessed day.